I would say more home caregivers. This class sounds like we have a little more of the opposite. But we'll kind of hit on everything. So first and foremost, class is for you. So ask questions. You can start the class out if there's things that you just dying to know, you want to have information about, ask right away. You can talk about them because I only have 50 minutes and we're down to 40. So if you have something you want to know, ask right away. If there's something I talk about and it triggers something that you want to know, it's okay to ask the tangent question. Yeah, we want to get the information to you that you guys want to know. And then, okay. So any burning questions right out of the gate? No. Okay. So last class, there was a lot of questions about paperwork. So we'll start with that real quick. So DNR was the one we know most about, and Pulse was the other one. How many of you guys have heard of both of those? DNR, how many of you have heard of Pulse?
No, I don't know. We don't know what that is.
No.
Do you know?
Yeah.
What is the Pulse? What do you think?
Physician's order for life-sustaining treatment.
Okay.
Something like that. But it is just a questionnaire that goes over how they would like to be treated if they lost conscious, if they lost and they were unresponsive, and what kind of interventions they want if they're still treating.
So it's just like a DNR,
Yeah.
It's similar. It sounds like it's similar to DNR, a little less, like a lower grade emergency.
So is it true that when you do a do not resuscitate, that you have to have that put on the refrigerator when the EMTs come? Because that's what my understanding is that otherwise they have to resuscitate.
So we were just talking about this in the last class too. Refrigerator is just a great spot for it to be.
Yep.
But we aren't checking. I'm not looking at the refrigerator.
Okay, so
So the caregiver has to inform us that there's a DNR and then present it. So that's the biggest thing. So the whole same thing, right? Have it and be prepared to present it.
otherwise you are resuscitating.
Yep, we are required to do so.
Okay.
So with that, make sure you have the paperwork filled out properly and fully. One thing we see a lot of is not signed at the bottom.
By the doctor.
We gotta make sure that everything's signed. If it needs a notary, it is notarized. Otherwise, it is not a legally binding contract. And then we have to provide care because we are legally obligated to do so.
You can have it on your license too.
A DNR?
DNR, yeah.
Okay. Have you seen one?
My friend has,
I didn't know that.
and in 2020, on Valentine's Day, he had to have a quadruple bypass. And Dr. Heck, he's just a friend of mine, but I was flipping, because I knew he had that on there. And Dr. Heck said that does not apply during surgery. During surgery, the DNR does not apply. They will keep him alive. But after the surgery is done, then,
If he flat lines, then
yeah,
they don't do anything.
God.
that's it.
There's so many rules.
Right.
There's a lot of rules. I wish they had a little bit better balance on that, because our clients, they just don't want to even do the DNR.
Mhm.
They just,
Yeah. If that's how they want to be treated, they gotta do the DNR.
Okay.
Otherwise, we gotta.
otherwise we're just putting 911, we're calling 911. That's our simplest way of having to do it right now, because it's just, you dive into the rabbit hole.
But like I say, it's on, Jimmy's got it on his license.
Okay.
And then, yeah, if it's on your license, that is gonna be a later stage in the game when we finally get your license. You get called 911.
Yeah.
Making sure that you are breathing, have a pulse. You don't have those two things. We're starting intervention. We don't really care what your name is, what your age, whether you're a donor or not a donor, right? We're just getting there trying to get you back to having a pulse and breathing. So.
Well, I appreciate that.
So good to know about the license, but also know that license is probably one of the last spots we're gonna check.
Yeah.
We're not gonna look at it like it's the documentation needs to be presented to us. Like Adam said, it needs to be complete and legal and signature. And definitely a notary would help on it as well. It needs to be an original document, not a copy document. But I've been in a scene where I'm doing CPR on somebody and the medics are reading through,
Oh, yeah,
you know, to verify, because we are gonna always default to life-saving measures
yeah,
unless we see that and it's presented. It's not an easy cut and dry system.
yeah. No,
Here's the hoping that it goes through the way you want it to go.
yeah, because then I mean, not, yeah, I've got donor down, you know, on mine. But then I also, I'm RH negative O blood, you know, where I had to have both the Logan shots and all this stuff when I had kids and everything, and when the major accident that I was in, and I heard that I had to have 2 transfusions then, and kind of a rare one, or whatever.
So documentation is that we want to make sure that it's full and complete. And then the second is we want to make sure that we have a plan, whether it's medical emergency, fire emergency, whatever the emergency is, we want to have a plan in place and have practice. So yeah, for facilities, you know, it's a little different, right? They're required by law. They have to have a book, usually at a nurse's desk or something like that. Have all of that in there, we check it, but if you're a home care, right, that's not something you're required to do, but that's something you should be thinking about doing, as having a plan and having it in place and then practicing it. So, medical, right, what are we gonna do? We have the paperwork and the DNR is the one we talked about, but that's the most extreme, right? But we also then have to have pulse as the step lower than that. And then also we have to know what we want to do other than that as well. We want to discuss it, plan on it. And the big thing is you guys are now the advocates, or you have to reach out to the advocate for who their medical director is, right? So as many of you may know, when you're dealing with your patients, you have to know who the medical has the final say in what is getting done. And you have to have that in place. And the big one is because we know families don't agree, right? There's lots of times where sister she's the medical.
You will be.
Yep, thank you. But brother feels completely different. Maybe the louder one, maybe the one first on scene. So you got to have a plan for all of that. Who's dealing with what and what is actually going to be followed through with. Be able to deal with that situation beforehand. Like Orman said, Chris said, we're always going to default to life-saving measures. So if there is an argument happening over here, we are not getting involved. We are providing care unless there is a legally binding document that says otherwise.
You know, this conversation is making me think about something with our organization, and I mean, Kim's gonna know the answer to this, I think, but we send people out into people's private homes. And I'm just thinking, do we talk about if there's a fire when one of our staff members are at a client's home? Should there be procedures or policies in place for an organization like ours to talk about if this situation happens, if you're there in their home providing respite or doing homemaking chores or whatever, and there's a fire, like, what thoughts do you have about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure you can talk, yeah,
Yeah.
but we usually, you know, the caregivers know the procedures from different houses.
Because they're doing the home assessment, but there's so many variables. I mean, I don't even know how prepared you could ever be.
No, so.
And I can't worry about that.
No, so we can quick tie into that.
Yeah.
So as far as that for a fire goes, it's just like on an airplane, right? They tell you to put your mask on first and then help somebody else. So that's what you're gonna do. Make sure you are okay. And then you are gonna help the person out. But the big thing is get out of the situation. that is the best thing you can do. Get yourself and the client or the person caring for out of the situation. Fires are gross. I'll just loop back into fires for a minute. Fires are really bad. Growing up, Chris and I, and probably all of you have heard stop, drop, and roll, right?
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna be on fire once a month. You know, like I thought I would be rolling across this country because I was in fire. Everyone's like, oh, stop, drop, and roll. I've never had to stop, drop, and roll. I run into fires and I've still never had to stop, drop, and roll, right? It's just not something you're likely to happen to you. You're not gonna catch on fire.
Yeah,
More likely it's gonna get you is the smoke,
yeah.
especially in today's fires. The products that we have in our the smoke is terrible. We have a bunch of plastics, right? They're just petroleum-based products. It's really gross. It's hot, disgusting. 2 breaths of that stuff, you're out.
Your lungs are done.
Yep, you're done. So smoke is what's gonna get you. So when I talk about this, get you and the patient out, because even this trash can fire, right? I take 2 breaths of that gross trash can and I can't do anything. Think about sitting at a bonfire. Wind shifts,
Oh, yeah.
blows in your face. Your eyes start watering, and most of us cough, right? And that is clean burning material. And it's usually a light gray, maybe a white smoke. Now imagine black, nasty smoke, right? So you don't even want to deal with it. So yeah, that's your procedure. A lot of places want us to come out and do fire extinguisher training.
Yeah.
Hey, will you teach our clients how to use fire extinguishers? Great thing to know, but the reality is we don't want you to use it. We want you to get
Most of our clients aren't strong enough. I mean, they just aren't strong enough or capable, and plus the cost. That would be another thing for them. They would be saying, how much would that be?
right.
Yeah.
So like simple measures for cooking fires, stuff like that, right? The easiest thing to do is put a lid on it. Taking away the oxygen, the fire is going to go out. Microwave. Microwaves are airtight. How many of us knew that microwaves were airtight?
I did the work, I didn't know.
Yeah, so it's airtight. So if you accidentally hit the wrong button, someone hits the wrong button and you see a fire in the microwave, we're just turning the power off and letting it burn out inside. It will eventually run out of oxygen and fuel for the most part, because usually how it's composed. So leave the door shut, let it go out. Same with the stove, right? I said put a lid on it, we're turning the power off, and same with the oven. Oven is not airtight, but the second we open the door, we're giving it more fuel and more oxygen. So we're keeping that door shut, we're limiting the oxygen, and then we're not exposing it to other things that the flame and heat can turn into fuel. So yeah, protocol is get you and yourself on. But the other thing is, if they're working in these homes, and for your own home, have a fire escape plan. And we call it a fire escape plan, but the reality is it's just an emergency escape plan, right? Whether it's a tornado, a windstorm, whatever it is, have an escape plan. We want 2 ways out of every bedroom. And then if we don't, what is our other plan? If we don't have 2 ways out of every bedroom, if we only have 1, how are we gonna deal with that? And then we want a meeting place. Where are you going? Who's gonna have the phone? What's that situation? So caregivers going into a bunch of different people's homes, have them know what the exits are. And as a person who goes into other people's homes can be gross, clutter.
She knows.
Exits are blocked.
Yeah.
That is a priority for you. Like if they're gonna do something today, hey, what I'm here to help you with is I'm gonna clean an aisle so that we have good egress in and out of this space in case something happens. Something happens to you medically and responders need to come get you, it's nice to have a good clean means of egress. Or if worst case scenario, there's a fire, good clean means of egress. So those are priorities. Egress is our priority. Yeah. And then if you're helping them with other stuff, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, right?
Yeah.
In facilities, we have systems being checked on a yearly basis, making sure it's up to date. But in our homes, not necessarily the case. That's a simple one, right? They are going in so often, once a month, they may test the button, make sure it works. Second thing we do is once or twice a year, we change the battery. The big thing there is it just reduces the anxiety. Because if we change the battery twice a year, Now we know if it goes off, it's only going off because of emergency, not because of a false alarm. And so, yeah, smoke alarm in the bedroom, carbon monoxide within 10 feet. Carbon monoxide, the cell combination, so a lot of your local fire departments or home will come out and install one for you. But we don't do it for facilities, but if
But for the homes.
yeah, hey, I'm helping so-and-so, you need a new extinguisher, all your fire department, they have usually grant programs and stuff.
So do they have programs for, the CO detectors? Or is that something that you have to buy and then they'll come and do it for the fire department?
The programs are kind of intermittent.
Are they?
Yeah,
Ours is just smoke, right? Ours isn't a combination,
that's it.
our smoke detector that we have, that we're,
The ones we currently have are an overstock that we got from Home Depot, that are a year old that they couldn't sell anymore, so they are a combination.
no, they are
Big
combination.
combination.
So yeah, it depends on what program they have.
Yeah. I'll look into that, because I know we just did it at Costco of the combination and it was $80. And, you know, a lot of our folks can't afford that.
No.
That's why they're not in there.
Yeah,
That's a thing though too, like, an $80 smoke / CO alarm is gonna work.
I know.
The $30 ones are the ones that I question,
yeah.
Yeah.
you know, so this is a phrase I use at every presentation, just because you can buy it doesn't mean you should buy it.
Right.
And the cheaper smoke alarms are the ones that they fail very often at 4 to 5 years. We have a 10-year requirement. Adam and I always say 5 to 7 years is a good recommendation time for replacing whether or not it's still working or not. Because it's just the sensors, they just, after a while, the dust, the atmosphere, they just deteriorate. They don't work correctly anymore. So, yeah, and $80 for a combination alarm is actually cheaper than two $45
Right.
Yeah,
units. And then, if it's a rental unit, then they're required, the landlords are required to make sure that's something they go too. Like if you're caregiving for somebody or you're going to a facility that is owned and then rented to that person, the landlord, the property owners are responsible for providing those type of.
and I have clients in apartment buildings where they do inspections and
Yeah.
replacing.
Yeah, and sometimes you guys are, yeah, really advocating for it. Right? You know, the requirement, so you can be the voice to say,
Yeah.
no, you need to get so-and-so their skills. So I think we spun off of plans. Is that where we were in that one?
Right, they spun off like 5 minutes into it. so-
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
We have to depart,
Okay.
and I don't want you to feel offended.
No, I'll even open the door for you.
Okay.
Get out. Thank you.
Oh, I'm not going to do that.
We'll take Jack with us.
Yeah.
I wanna go home and play with my dog. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Safe travels.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
So, we want an emergency evacuation plan, right? Whether it's for smoke, fire, tornado, or whatever it is. We want to know our means of egress out of the house and a rally point. We're all going to meet, we're there to take care of. So we talked about smoke is what's going to get us. So with that, we want to practice if there's a fire. Right, if there's an electrical outlet out, electricity out, or a windstorm that knocks something down, right, we don't have to worry about it. If we have a fire, part of the practicing of getting out is we don't want to be up in the smoke. So we have a combative patient. We know a lot of memory patients can be combative. That's something we have to think about. So practicing it is a good thing to do. So we can push that alarm and it'll sound, and we can run a drill, just like would at a facility or a school, to see how they react, see how you react. I told the last class, I'm a professional. When I'm on the job, calm and collected, emergency with my 3 little girls, I act completely different. Right? I'm nowhere near as calm and collected as I am when I'm dealing with someone else's emergency. So same thing goes for you guys. If you're dealing with personal emergency or if you're working at a facility, know how you're going to react and know how the patient's going to react. Practice that. But we don't want to walk out. So part of that is, yeah, maybe we have a patient lay on a blanket who's dragging. Because we've all been in a sauna, and saunas, we can be in 200 degrees, happy, right? But we can't be at 1200 degrees. So on fire, we're gonna be 1200 plus degrees here. And then here and below, we're gonna be 200 degrees or less. So you could be on the ground and have 80-degree temperature. Survivable, clean air there, right? That's where we want our patients to be. So it's not just thinking about walking out the door, practicing, and it's getting them low and going. There's that. So we'll talk about doors with that and windows. So doors are a fire protection, part of the fire protection system. They do two things for us. One, they protect us from smoke. Closed bedroom door, you guys have probably all seen it on social media, right? The house is black from the smoke, but the room is completely white and clean. And that's true. Smoke wants to travel where it's clean, right? Not clean, the easiest path. And so it will fill up everything else before it starts pushing around the cracks. So even though this is an airtight, it takes a long time for it to want to come. And then everyone's always worried about the big crack underneath. Smoke has to fill from the ceiling to the floor before it's coming underneath the door. So it's going to protect us from smoke, which, what did we say is more likely to get you? Smoke. And then the second thing they're going to do is doors are rated, have a fire rating to protect you from fire. So like this door and is 20 minutes. Other hollow core doors at your house, or if you have an older house with thick, like 20 minutes is the minimum. So you're protected from fire, at least by the door, for 20 minutes. So that will give you a space to go. So if you have a patient who isn't ambulatory or combative and you know you're not gonna be able to get out, shelter in place might be the best option for you, right? We can shut that door, have some protection, and then whether we can get out the window or not, getting out the window is obviously always out of the structure is the safest. But if we can't do that, then we can get to a window and make ourselves seen and visible, and we are in a safe space for a little bit. As far as apartment buildings, if you guys are dealing with clients in apartment buildings, make sure you know the system and they know the system, what it's going to do. Because worst case scenario, shelter in place. Best case scenario, outside. And there's a lot in between. Most of the facilities, the means of egress are protected, whether with a sprinkler system. So that's a safer space to be. And then another safe space, most stairwells are protected space. So they have doors that seal. If you ever walk into or walking out of an apartment building or another building, and you notice you open the door and now you're on the landing and the landing is huge to the one side. That's because it's designed to be a shelter in place space for a certain amount of people. So that is set up to do that. So it'll be a sprinkler space, has doors, protect you from smoke, all good things for the smoke fire side. What else we got?
One thing that we kind of pointed out that inadvertently came in the conversation was kind of piggybacks on smoke alarms and CO alarms and early detection is basically what saves a lot of lives, but especially because you have a memory care person that you're taking care of. If they're by themselves inadvertently for whatever period of time, how do they notify if they're in an emergency? And some people were talking about smartwatches, pendants. The limitation with a lot of pendants has been that they are tied to whatever residence they're in, but they now do have fully independent, fully remote pendants that are just the one touch, and it gives that person at least that much more opportunity to have a early notification to emergency services if that person is by themselves or need to contact someone. Just kind of a little additional note to that.
Yeah, pendants are the way to go, right? They don't take a lot of effort, don't have to have a lot of knowledge. Worst case scenario, we are sending someone that we don't need to be sending, right? Way better than the opposite of someone needing help and not being able to call for it.
Well, one client, it was, to her around the neck, but she had in her room, I was cleaning in there and it fell on the floor and it was asking, if she fell.
Great.
So that was really cool.
Yeah, there's,
I could cancel it or whatever, I don't remember what it was, but.
yeah, they're smart. They're super
Yeah.
smart nowadays,
That
so.
was really nice, yeah.
It's good to get kids in babysitting too, like, I mean, you set them up for kind of emergencies and stuff, but I guess I never necessarily learned all the fire stuff. There's so much more
Yeah,
about.
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, you definitely have to be. Yeah, what other questions do we have? That's right, we knocked out most of the stuff on there.
Person who unconscious versus combative.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit about that. Unconscious patient, obviously is easier to deal with. Versus combative. I talked about it a little bit for the fire stuff, but yeah, know what your patients are gonna do. Your people, because that makes a huge difference. And the part of the training with them or doing a drill is just to see what they do. Chris was just talking about on the break, and maybe you guys have seen it. I think it was a dementia patient, right? Sitting in a recliner and in the corner that he can see right in front of him. I don't know if it's a candle or something.
Curtain caught fire.
Curtain, yeah, I don't know how the curtain caught fire, but curtain starts on fire and he just sits there and watches it. Has no idea what to do, right? Doesn't even, and then when is asked to leave is kind of combative, like, no, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm happy.
That was on the side of the road, it was from, like, coming from Mora, it was like curled up, but it was like that.
So yeah, know how they're gonna act. But remember, if they're combative and we have a smoke-filled space, we're protecting ourselves first, right? Because we can always give help. We're okay. We can't give help if we're not okay. So smoke-filled space, they're gonna take a couple breaths of that gross stuff, most likely go unconscious or then want to go to the ground, and then we can help them out the rest of the way. But other things we're doing, right? We want to get out of space, not going deeper into space. We're shutting doors where we can to try to stop the travel of that smoke. To help give us a barrier to protect us if need be. Because, right, there's areas of safety. There's the best, which is outside, and then there's a whole lot in between that we can do.
Extinguishers.
Oh, yeah, we talked about extinguishers. How many of you guys have extinguishers? Do at home, right? And then, or
And then even for in the kitchen, I've got a special one for, there's not the white stuff all over.
okay,
It's just board kitchen,
yep, okay,
one time use.
Yeah. yep. So. Let's just say, extinguishers are great. Not our first resort, right? Safest thing is to get you and the person out of the building. Most of us don't know how to use an extinguisher and haven't trained with an extinguisher. So we are just putting ourselves further.
Types, so many different types.
Yeah, there's so many different types. Yeah, we're really, at the end, we're putting ourselves further into the situation and more likely to get one. If you have an extinguisher and you know how to use it and it's being tested annually, that's what the required are, then all the more power to you. Just make sure you know what you're doing. Because
We had a resident at the last facility that asked us about, is there an extinguisher that they can purchase for themselves, because the extinguishers that are in the hallway are too heavy.
Oh.
Right? So my answer to that is those extinguishers that are in the hallway are basically kind of minimum standard for size and ability for somebody who's never used one to actually utilize it and do something with it, where you go get those little ones that are just slightly bigger than this bottle Well, it's like one shot, and if you misuse it, like if you try to hit your grease fire on the stove, chances are you're just gonna spray it all over, make the situation worse. Or you have a pile of burning rubbish, like a small trash can fire in your apartment, and you try to put it out with that, and you don't use all of it fast enough or in the right spot, then you're still in the atmosphere, you're still breathing the smoke, and on top of that, you're breathing the extinguisher chemicals. So the thing that we like to tell people is just, we would prefer you to get out, get your person out with you, and then let somebody else take care of the fire. Because the chances are, if you're gonna try to put it out and you don't know how to use it, you're gonna get yourself in more trouble, then your person's gonna be in more trouble. So we just try to steer you towards just getting it.
Yeah, did I talk about kitchen fires? I did.
What are these fire blankets? Are they good, bad? Nope.
Yeah, some are okay, right? Right? That you're trying to extinguish a fire, so if the whole thought here is we're gonna smother it. Some are okay at it, some aren't very good at it.
Not the time you want to find out.
Right, a lot of times, like the one we hear a lot about right now is for electric cars. It's a big blanket that you're supposed to put on electric cars. Okay, now think about a car, it's sitting inches off of the ground. How am I smothering it? Because I'm trying to take away the oxygen. So I'm draping, I'm not taking the oxygen away. It's just gonna burn from the bottom instead, right? So yeah, if you have one, don't throw it away, right? It's worst case scenario, you could throw it on. Good for a small object. It will contain it because that's what we're trying to do. You might not extinguish it, but it'll contain it. Just like Chris was saying with get you and your person out. I've said it multiple times. We're shutting doors, right? If we can, we are containing it to this room until someone else can come deal with it. Or we're shutting the oven door, containing it until someone else can deal with it. Putting a lid on it, containing it until someone else can deal with it. Yeah, did I talk about kitchen fire stuff with you guys?
Or microwaving air type.
Yep. Okay, I did talk about
Yeah.
it. Perfect. This is the third one today, different subjects on all of them.
Yeah.
Blend together.
But some with oxygen. Let's try.
That's
As
a
a
fun.
nurse, I should know this, I guess. But
Yeah, oxygen. It can make anything burn.
what do you do with a patient that has a big tank behind them? Just shut her off?
Yeah, if fire situation, absolutely. Yeah, we see it all the time. You see people smoking
Yeah.
and that is the worst thing you can possibly do. When I say, oxygen will make anything burn, oxygen will make anything burn. You have just pure oxygen blowing out at 5, 10, 15 liters per minute. It will make unburnable things burn. It is just like having a torch that makes it burn. So yeah, shut it off. They have the portable one. Get them, I would still shut it off. Get them out of there and then turn it back on. Because it is just petroleum product is the hose, right? Flammable liquid, it's in a solid form, waiting to go on their face. And then you have oxygen, which makes anything burn when mixed, right? So yeah, shut it off, get them out of the scenario, and then turn that oxygen on if they have one of those little portables. But yeah, that's one thing. Oxygen, keep it stored safely. Have the containers in one of those crates, right, with those slots in them. That or chained to a wall. Yeah, oxygen is life-saving stuff, but as far as fire goes, it's a nightmare. It's a big thing.
We just kind of got to have an experiment with the tubing. And, you know, so on average, people were on like 2 to 3 milliliters of oxygen on a rebreather, or condenser. And we lit the end of the nasal cannula on fire. And it was literally like a little blowtorch.
Really?
So the tubing was the fuel, you had the oxygen accelerating that fuel, and then the chemical reaction was happening the whole time, and it was literally like flame about this long, just sticking off of it and then just burning back once the tank. So yeah, so we just shutting that off, taking that oxygen away. The tubing's may still be on fire, but at least you're creating less of an accelerated fire. And unfortunately, just last month, we had a fire where one of those condensers was involved, and it accelerated the fire, we're pretty certain, so.
You guys have any questions?
There was a good question in the first session about caregivers, like if a caregiver had an emergency and they were taken to the hospital in the ambulance. Do you want to talk on that?
Yeah, that was a good question.
Ah,
So first time I've seen a bracelet was today, a bracelet saying that they're a caregiver, and they have a dependent that, they need, that emergency responders need to go find and do. So that was a first for me. That's something you guys can look into. We talked about that. Jack, down. Thank you. Remember, we're doing a primary of you, making sure you're breathing, you have a pulse, and you're not bleeding out. So us getting to your wrist is gonna take a little bit, but eventually we will get there and then continue. But just if you call 911, right now there is kind of this flux on what's happening, very wide range for ambulances. Before COVID, they were letting almost anybody go with, right? They would let 3 people ride in the back of the ambulance with you. COVID, they said nobody's riding in the back of the ambulance, and now it's kind of a mix. Some ambulance services are still saying, nope, we're not bringing anybody else with us. Some are saying, yeah, you can bring one person with, and then it's kind of that in between. But especially in your guys' situation, children, one thing, right? Car seat, sometimes they're willing to do it. A lot of times they'll put them in a squad, police car or a fire, like if they have a SUV or something, they can put them in the car seat and that. But as far as a dependent adult, that's something you want to tell them right away. Hey, I have a dependent adult that I'm the caregiver for. They can't be left alone. They're gonna have to come with. The reason we're telling them right away is because some of the ambulance agencies are gonna say, I can't deal with both. So we're gonna have 2 ambulances coming. One to deal with you and your medical issues, and then one, even though nothing's happening to your dependent, but in case something happens, that one is now transported in another ambulance. It's other times they're like, yep, that's fine. There's 3 of us in this one, because staffing levels are different for all ambulance services too. Some have 3 that they're ride with, 1 drives, 2 in the back. Some have just 1 drives, 1's in the back by themselves. So it all depends. So get that information out early. If you are having a medical emergency, what your dependent is there and no one else can care, right? This person's gonna tell them early, get that started.
We could do, we have, what's time do we have?
7 minutes.
We could do a quick.
You guys want to see Jack work? Not emergency preparedness, by any means.
wants to.
Well, he always wants to work. He's been itching to work this whole time. Yeah, Jack is an ignitable liquid detection canine. End of the day, we call him like fast and easy arson dog, but he does more than just arson. We train with 1 gas, but they can find up to 62 different accelerants based on that one. So with that, it's right. We use our eyes to see what happened at a fire. That's kind of our sense. Jack is using his nose. So even if we knew the fire started here in this trash can, but for some reason there's some weird burden patterns over there, Jack can at least let us know, hey, there was ignitable liquids over here, and that can lead us to ask more questions to figure out the full story of what happened at the fire. Doesn't always have to be nefarious. Just he's good at finding the accelerant. So part of our team that goes out and investigates fires.
Cool.
So Chris, sounds like wants to put out a couple drops in the classroom, and me and Jack will stand outside quick. If you guys think of any questions, you can ask right afterwards or during while Chris.
Part of this is Jack is trained on a reward to this program, so he doesn't actually get out of the bowl. He doesn't have a morning feeding time and evening feeding time. So the only time he gets to eat is when he's working or training. And Adam will feed him. You'll see him feed wherever he indicates. We hit up a few spots real quick. You see the bottom of your sheet.
So it's the department's dog, is it like one of you specifically like takes him home? Okay.
Yep, he lives with Adam. So Adam is the handler. And I'm just the coworker. So actually, he actually outranks me in Adam, like as far as like going for the department.
He's watching you too.
Yeah.
You know, it's.
Yeah.
So kind of on call all the time.
Yeah, so our investigations, we're basically on call for investigations. And so he'll go with us for just about every investigation.
Oh, that would be cool.
You see the real.
Yeah.
Because he's watching every,
Yeah.
we're even coming.
Mine would just be working.
Yeah. Might just be in the corner. Cowering.
Oh. Oh. Mm-mm.
So part of me doing the gas drops is that it actually encourages Adam so he doesn't cheat himself as far as the training goes through.
Yeah,
So he'll come in, Adam says usually they'll do 3 searches. So the first one's kind of an oriented search.
okay.
He gets, and then he'll go back through the room a little bit more detailed.
Yeah.
As far as the search.
Is that your only fire dog?
He's the only one in the state of Minnesota.
Wow.
So there was one in Cloquet for several years and then that dog died.
Wow.
Yeah. And then usually by, the nature of the job, they typically die of cancer.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah. My daughter and her husband have a dog. He's a hunting dog. They even had him in St. Paul for school and everything. And I can't remember what the name is. But over Mother's Day, we're in the cities and her husband is from Stillwater and went to his folks' house. Walked in the front door and out the back